Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the playbook of a venture capitalist named Harry Stebbings. He actually sat down with over 100 billionaires just to figure out how they built their fortunes. And let me tell you, the secrets he found are probably not what you're expecting.
So let's just start with this question. How do you make $1.75 million in just 24 hours? I know, it sounds completely like a clickbait headline, right? But this is a real story. And if you can understand how this happened, you'll unlock pretty much every lesson that follows.
$1.75 million. That's how much Harry Stebbings made in a single day. I mean, think about that for a second. For most of us, that's a lifetime of savings, and he earned it in just 24 hours. It's wild.
But here's the really staggering part. He did it when he was just 19, a teenager, and he did it with what he himself called a useless podcast that had basically 0 listeners. So how on earth is that even possible?
Okay, let's get into this origin story because this wasn't some get-rich-quick scheme. It all started with this really high-stakes family crisis that basically forced him to learn the art of the deal, and fast.
See, this wasn't about getting rich for fun. This was about survival. His mother was diagnosed with MS, and the medication came with this unbelievable price tag, $750,000. All of a sudden, his little podcast wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was a lifeline. And that intense pressure is what fueled everything.
So he came up with this brilliant cold email and sent it to 25 of the biggest tech CEOs out there. Here's the magic. First, he created insane scarcity and FOMO, fear of missing out, by telling them their biggest competitors were trying to sponsor his show. Second, he priced the sponsorship at $95 grand, just under that magic 100K number that usually needs all this extra corporate red tape. And third, he personalized every single one, adding a little PS that mentioned the CEO's favorite whiskey. The result? 19 of them said yes.
Now that incredible sale was really just the beginning. So the question is, how did he take that one success and turn it into getting 107 billionaires to actually sit down and talk with him?
He put it this way. He used social validity as a weapon. He understood that getting access to powerful people isn't about knocking on doors one by one. No, it's a domino effect. Once you get that first big name, you can use their credibility as a key to unlock the next door, and the next, and the one after that. So, this weapon he's talking about, it's just social proof. And it's a really simple human instinct, right? We all assume that if a bunch of respected people are doing something, it must be the right thing to do. So when he landed one big guest, he wasn't just getting an interview. He was getting a stamp of approval that made every single yes after that so much easier to get.
And this just illustrates the difference perfectly. Look on the left, you're a nobody asking for a chance. But on the right, by name-dropping a huge brand like CNN, or in Harry's case, a famous guest, you're suddenly credible, you're desirable. It's the same person making the request, but the context, the social proof, changes absolutely everything. But he didn't just stop there. He built a system, an incredible referral flywheel. At the end of every single interview, he'd ask his guest, who are 3 other people you think I should have on the show? And once they gave him the names, they were way more likely to actually make the introduction for him. So one success automatically turned into 3 new leads. It's a perfect, self-sustaining system. And the power of this network just grew and grew over time. Years later, he raised $70 million for his own venture fund. And he did it, a lot of the time, with just a few simple WhatsApp messages he sent while he was at the gym. I mean, how do you even get to a place where a text message can move millions of dollars?
Well, here's the secret, and this is so important. Those messages weren't magic. They were just the very tip of the iceberg. What you didn't see was the decade of genuine relationship building that came before. He'd move conversations off of email and onto WhatsApp. He'd share personal stuff, like photos of him and his mom going for a walk. He was building real human connections, not just a list of contacts.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the philosophy behind all this. Because, all the tactics and strategies in the world are totally useless if you don't have the right mindset to actually guide them.
So after spending hundreds of hours with 107 of the wealthiest, most successful people on the entire planet, he made a pretty shocking observation. He came to the conclusion that out of all 107 of them, he would describe only one of them as truly happy. Just one. And that led him to this really profound realization about what success even is. And that realization led him to this conclusion. The journey matters way more than the destination.
A burnt reputation closes doors that no amount of money can ever reopen. So ultimately, how you build your fortune is so much more important than what you build. So to navigate all this, he suggests a really simple framework. Find a mentor. But not just someone who's rich. Find someone whose entire life you admire. For him, it's this guy named Pat Grady, a partner at a big firm. So whenever Harry faces a tough choice, he just asks himself, what would Pat do? It becomes his compass for making the right call, even when it's the harder one. He also talks about this fascinating cultural difference in mindset. He says that in the UK, the default reaction to a new idea is often, oh, that's not going to work. But in the US, it's the opposite. That's going to work. And he argues that this power of positive visualization, of actually believing you're going to succeed, is a fundamental ingredient that you have complete control over.
So after hearing all these lessons from billionaires, what's the first step? What can someone do starting today with basically just a phone and an internet connection?
Harry lays out a really clear path. First, don't try to be everything to everyone. Specialize in a niche you actually care about. Then interview the leaders in that space to build your own expertise and that all-important social proof. Share what you're doing publicly. And look for opportunities, like learning AI tools and then selling that knowledge to big, slow companies. And most important of all, if you're young, take risks now while the stakes are low.
And maybe the most important reminder of all is this. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. It took Harry 4 years, just to get 1,000 plays on his podcast. Success is an endurance game. It's about who can just survive the longest. The real key is just to start.
So let's end on this really powerful thought from Harry. The biggest fear that stops most of us from ever starting anything is the fear of failure. But his point is, in the very beginning, if you fail, nobody's watching. Nobody cares. So if nobody cares that you failed, what exactly are you so afraid of?